We're making a large countertop makeup bag. First, we're going to start by preparing our zipper. First thing you're going to want to do is take your zipper pull and add it to your zipper tape. Next, prepare your zipper tabs by folding the sides into the center. Then you're going to fold the whole thing in half, hot dog style, and place that at the end of your zipper tape. Now you're going to see me cut down my zipper to 13.5 inches. Mine was a little too long. After that, I'm going to take the second zipper tab and use the same technique to fold both sides into the center, fold the whole thing in half, and then apply it to the end of the zipper. Now we're ready to take our zipper to the sewing machine. We're going to sew at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure that you catch both sides of that zipper tab so that you can properly secure the zipper tab onto your zipper tape. Once you've secured both zipper tabs, now you're ready to attach the zipper to the front main panel and the lining. I like to sit it in front of me like this. You're going to put your zipper tab in your front panel right sides together. Make sure that zipper is centered on the front panel. Then you're going to follow that by adding the lining right sides together with the main fabric panel. Line all that up at the top and on the sides, and then we're going to sew down at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, but the most important part is you're going to want to sew right next to the zipper teeth without running over them. Now flip that main panel out, and we're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on that main panel side. Notice that our lining is not included in the top stitch. Now that we've got the front panel and lining attached, we're going to attach the back and the other lining piece to the top of the zipper. We're creating that zipper sandwich again by aligning the back panel to the top and lining up the sides. Then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to match up the lining piece right sides together with the first lining piece that we applied. And again, it's crucial to make sure that all these are lined up at the top, and you also want to check to make sure you've got them lined up at the sides as well. Now that we have everything lined up, we're going to run it under our machine at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, being careful to make sure that we do not run over our zipper teeth, but we want to sew as close as we can. Also too, just make sure you don't run over your zipper pull because you don't want to do that. Here's the seam we just sewed. Flip out that main panel, and we're going to sew a second top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on the other side. Back at your workstation, double check your work so far. You want to make sure that you've got your zipper pull on, make sure that it's working. Also too, you want to find that front panel because next we're going to be applying the metal label. Make sure the lining pieces are up at the top and out of the way. Now I'm going to find my center and create a vertical line 7¼ inches in from the side, and a horizontal line I'm going to make 3 inches down from the zipper. I use those markings to center up my label and to poke my holes where they need to be in order for my prongs to slip inside that front panel. Once you get the prongs in, flip it over, add your washer on the back, and then I like to bend my prongs outward and place a piece of duct tape or double-sided tape just to protect those metal pieces. Make sure after you get that label on, you eyeball it just to make sure that that's nice and centered up. Next, make sure that you unzip your zipper all the way, and we are going to put our main fabrics right sides together, get those lined up and put some clips on. Then we're going to move to the sides. You want to line up the top stitching on each panel. Do the same thing on both sides, and then get some clips on the lining, and make sure you kind of make a mental note of where you're going to leave that opening. Now we're going to box our corners at 2½ inches in from the side and 2½ inches up from the bottom. As you can see, I'm basically just drawing a square. Once we get those drawn on, grab your scissors and cut those out. It should look a little something like this. Next, we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew all the way around, making sure that we leave an opening in the lining for turning. I'm sewing at 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm being very careful to make sure that I sew right next to my zipper tabs, but not over them. Another important note as you start and stop these seams, make sure you're back stitching at the beginning and end of each seam. And also too, just a reminder, make sure you do not close up that lining side. Now it's time to sew up our boxed corners. What you want to do is line up the bottom seam and the side seam on all 4 corners. Make that as flat as you can. I like to do that by adding a bunch of clips on there. And you're going to prepare every single corner before you take it to the machine. When you're at the machine, you're going to sew at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance on the main fabric side and a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the lining side to close up those boxed corners. It should look a little something like this when you're done. Now we're going to reach our hand all the way in and we're going to turn the entire project right side out. I like to take a look at the project while I still have that hole in the lining. That way, if I notice anything that needs to be adjusted or any stitches that need to be picked out, I can do that before I close up that lining. But once you've taken a good look, go ahead and take that lining out, match up the seams in that open hole in the lining, and then you want to sew at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to close up that hole. Once you get that hole closed up, then you're going to put the lining back into your project using your hands to finger press and to push the corners in as best as you can to get everything looking nice. You can purchase the sewing box for this project with the link that's right there by the arrows. And there you have it. You've made a makeup bag.